My name is Yuri Kasdorp from Mars, and we are back with another track guide. And this week we're at week 5 for the GT Sprint series, and we are at Barcelona Historic. So the first time in a while we got to a track with not many long straights, mostly long sweeping corners, which means it's usually good for the Porsche. Good chance to get this car again, and quite a tricky track. Very important to nail qualifying because it's quite difficult to overtake. So let's see how we nail a lap around this tricky flowy track. Alright, so here we are, final sector. Running the historic layout of Barcelona. Full fuel as usual. Tires still a bit cold after just one outlap. So here we are, starting our lap. Finally the Porsche should be good after having some rough tracks last couple of weeks. Look at the light at the left side, open the corner up. And try to avoid the anti-cut on the inside. Got a lot on the left side here to open up the right-hander. Then we go off the throttle to get the car to turn in, and once the car starts turning, we can start building the power. Brake where the bridge starts there, try to keep it tight. Tricky to find your braking on the downhill here. I brake where the curb starts on the right side. I'm going throttle really early here, because we can cut over the curb. Go from the right side. I like going onto the curb after the anti-cut. That way it's easy to avoid the off-track on the left side. Brake just before the 50 here. Don't run too wide on the exit, we want to end up around the left side here. And low inputs, careful with the throttle to not run too deep on the exit. Then you could get a lot on the inside here. And then same for the last corner. Focus on a good exit. It's a lap around Barcelona Historic. Right, so let's have a closer look from the outside cam. Turn 1, it's all a combination, so you want to connect turn 1, 2 and 3. Turn 1 we want to open up as much as we can, and the right side tires can't touch the curb, but you can be close to it. I'm looking at the lights here, the lights and the 100, and I try to brake right as I'm passing the lights, just a bit before the 100. Again, keep those right side tires from touching the curb, will be an off track. And we go to the inside. There's two options you have here. You can either go to the inside of this anti-cut or miss it just like I'm doing here. Going to the inside usually is a tiny bit faster. So your right side tires will be here, but it's very close to the off track on the inside. And if you hit the anti-cut, you lose a bit of time. So it's quite tricky to get that done consistently. I like taking it a bit safer, just running it around and be a bit more consistent. Then turn 2, you want to make sure to go off the throttle a bit. So I'm going off the throttle a bit to get the front to turn in, because we don't want to run too wide on the exit of 2. We want to run on the inside curb, and we want to make sure that we're on the throttle nice and early, but we're not all the way to the right side, because then we wouldn't have a nice entry to turn 3, because all of the corners connect here. So we want to enter from close to the left hand side, and then I'm lifting completely, so no inputs here. And what that does is doesn't only just take the speed out, because maybe with the speed we could take the car, but we need to change the balance of the car. So you need to feel in the wheel when you want to go back on power. And you should feel your wheel get a bit heavier, because the weight is shifting towards the front of the car when we go off the throttle. And when the front is getting a bit heavier, you can see the rear starting to step out a tiny bit more. I can go back on power, and I can do the whole corner without understeering off the track. So if you're understeering a lot here, try to nail that lift on the entry and wait until the front end is more loaded. And if you do that correctly, you get the timing right, you should be able to go on power quite early here and then keep it flat out the whole time. So let's have a closer look at those inputs at the delta. So here we're having a look at the delta. We can analyze our data from the lab that we just did. We go to the lab, this one, and then we can select the first couple corners, just like so. I just hold the mouse, and then we can look at the corners here. So we see the only brake we use is for turn 1, not to trail off, and then a small lift when we're entering turn 2. That's just to keep it tight before the before turn 3, before the exit and the entry of turn 3. And then I'm lifting completely for quite a few meters here until I could go back on power. And then we don't want to just slam the power. We want to slowly build it up and make sure that we have rotation in the car before we go flat out. Then we can keep it flat out until the corner exit. So let's go back to iRacing. And we can look at the rest of the lap. So here we go. And then turn 4, we want to do a similar thing to turn 1, but it's a bit more lenient, so the right side tires can actually touch the curb a bit here. And you want to brake under the bridge, but the bridge is maybe not a precise reference point. So what you can also use is this white line on the ground here as a braking point and brake just a bit before that white line here. Then bring the car to the inside. Again, the bend is really important in these corners. And for the turn 5 downhill hairpin, there's not really a braking point. I like to look a bit at where the track starts going down more, but it's very not precise. So this point here, it comes down to practice, and what I use is I listen to the RPMs of the car. But you don't need exactly the same braking point in this corner here, which is a massive help because there's not really much to go off. You want to make sure that you're going into the corner and you don't want to apex too early, so you come out from the outside a bit. And you can run all the way over the inside curve as well, or run along the edge of it. Both work. And then want to again build at the throttle slowly and run all the way to the exit here. You can run all the way to the side of the gravel, so you can run the whole car on the curb. Want to keep it wide. There's no need to go all the way inside to compromise our entry for the next corner. And then brake right where the curb starts. Then again you can run over the green here, but it upsets the car a bit more and trade off for a better line. I like touching the curb tiny bit. And then we get to a point of the track which seems to change season by season, whether you get damage or not, maybe even car per car, setup per setup. With this setup I'm running, which is the CDA setup from last season, the front splitter clears the anti-cut nicely as long as you keep your left side or your right side tires quite far away from it and then run straight over it. If you put your right side tires, if you go from behind, if you put them right next to it where it starts, you might damage the floor and bottom out. But as long as you put your right side tires quite far away from it and run straight over it, the front splitter will be clear and you will avoid damage. So you can practice this, and if you can consistently do it without getting damage, I would recommend doing it in the race as well. But make sure to practice this a couple times beforehand. If you put your right side tires too close to the curb, it has been possible in the past to get quite a bit of damage on the floor, which might greatly affect your race, if not ruin your race. Once we've done that though, we get the camera centered up again, and we get to another very tricky corner, I think. Turn 9, also in F1, lots of crashes here. In F1, it's flat. For us, definitely not in GT3s. I want to follow the edge of the curb here, and then right when the curb ends, small tap of brake. And what I want to aim for is this anti-cut on the inside, and I want to be on the curb right after the anti-cut. And the reason for that is if I'm not on this curb, if you're on the side here, then it makes your car understeer a lot and you very, very easily get an off track on the exit. Here, if your right side tires are all the way on the curb here, it's an off track. So you want to avoid that, and I like avoiding that by being on the inside right after the anti-cut. Then we get to the historic part. Luckily not, at least I think luckily not, tight part in the last sector. We look to brake between the end of the gravel and the 50 here. And then just bring the car inside and hug the inside. You can run a tiny bit wide, but not too wide. You want to brake from close to the left side here. Right where you see the track coming together, where this green runoff is. And what you want to do in this corner here is in the middle of the corner, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps going, it keeps turning, keeps turning, keeps turning. You don't want to be high on your inputs, meaning you don't want to suddenly steer a lot, but also you don't want to suddenly go on throttle a lot or still brake a lot. You want to let the car turn as much as you can. And then when you go on throttle, you see we don't just go immediately flat out. We go slowly back on the power, and in iRacing, the first 50% of the throttle doesn't do that much. So we go to about 50, 55% and keep it there, keep it there, keep it there, and slowly build it up towards the exit to make sure we keep that rotation in the car. And the last two corners, almost flat out, you lift a bit on the entry. And what I'm aiming for is that my left side tires are on the curb on the inside. So as you can see, you can cut quite a lot. Keep the speed up here. And then last corner, you want to place your left side tires very, very close to the anti-cut. Small tap on the brake and entry. And make sure that you can be back on power quickly to have a nice run onto the front straight. And that's a lap around Barcelona Historic. Right, so there we go, another track guide done. Couple tricky points at the track, especially this one here, to avoid hitting the floor, gain a bit of time. So if you like more videos like this and more couple tips like this to gain that last couple tenths, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and I will see everyone next week for another track guide.